I listened to the Tim Ferriss podcast, the episode with Richard Schwarz, which is called IFS, Psychedelic Experiences Without Drugs and Finding Inner Peace for Our Many Parts. Episode number 492. This was a really interesting episode. So do you know about internal family systems, IFS?
I know vaguely what the premise is. I've never done any parts work, any IFS stuff. The men's emotional support group that I'm part of, two of the guys there have IFS therapists. Because the guy that runs the call said that this modality has some real power to it.
Yeah.
But he's not trained in it himself. So he just sort of said, go find a legit IFS practitioner and it will work. One of the guys has been doing it for a year, and the change in him that I've observed is it's real.
Nice. Yeah, so this episode was the first I'd ever heard of it. And as a very, very brief summary of what internal family systems is like it tries to, basically, you try to meet the different parts of you. And it's almost like you try to personify different parts of you. So it's, in a way, like, let's say you have some kind of behavior where you get outbursts of anger. You try to meet that angry part of you. And almost like, who is that? And then you try to have like a conversation with that person, and you try to. So over the course of this therapy, it's like you pull out these different parts of yourself, and then it's almost like you have this family of parts of you, and you're trying to resolve the family conflicts. That would be like the super brief version of how this works.
Yeah, I think a lot of this, like IFS, the basic premise of it, I think I've found aspects of this in a bunch of different places. It's like one of my favorite spiritual teachers, Ramdas, talked about this, about how your various neuroses are like, they're like kids in a family photo. It's like include them all, but they're not really going to go anywhere, or they might. It's up to them pretty much. But yeah, I've had experience with this almost on an intuitive kind of level. It's having a dialogue with different parts of you. I actually spoke to Gia the other day about this, because she mentioned IFS, and I said that at one point I kind of did this almost by accident. So there was a time when I was working for someone, I had a boss who was just a bit of a dick, and he seemed to just enjoy the power he had over me. And there was one particular day where he was just a bit more of an asshole than normal. And I would just sort of be people pleasing and be like, oh, okay, no problem. And then just sort of take it on the chin. And I was sort of engulfed in a kind of rage, like an internally directed rage. And I was having like thoughts of physically attacking him. And I was like, oh boy, what's this about? So I wrote about this, and I gave a voice to this part of me. And the reason why I had confidence and courage to do that is because I defined it as a part of me, not who I was. So I just wrote about it, and it was just crazy shit that I wrote down. But I also went one step further, and I took out my ink, like I used to paint like Zen brushwork. So I got a brush, black ink, and I painted what this thing was. And it was quite frightening how that's how it felt. So this thing had giant fucking teeth, and it had bright white eyes, and it was just screaming, and it wanted blood and chaos, and it wanted to inflict pain and damage, and it didn't care. It wasn't compassionate. It didn't give a flying fuck about anything else. It just wanted pure destruction and terror and all the bad shit. And I painted it, and I was like, wow, whoa, okay, that's totally a part of me. Like, that's definitely a part of me. And from doing that, I kind of recognized that what I did was this thing also was trying to serve me.
Yeah.
In a way. it was in its own voice. It was basically saying, "How dare you let this asshole have power over you? Never fucking do that again. Don't you dare let him do that again," kind of thing. It's like repressing my assertiveness meant that this thing had to posture far more than would be healthy to get me to pay attention to it, basically. So I did that. But in the process of doing that, I also painted the hero. Because after that, I did this same thing the following day. And I kind of impressed myself at how well I painted this thing. Because I'm not a particularly good painter. But I was just like, whatever. And it was like a knight who had shoulder pads. And it's just the silhouette of a knight who has like a sword. And for some reason is holding this orb. I don't know what the orb is in his hand. It's just the hero. And it's almost like, wow, I painted two archetypal parts of me. And I looked at the hero and I was like, okay, yeah, that's a part of me too. That's a part of me that's got a sword, meaning he's not harmless. And he also has an orb that seemed like it illuminates darkness. As in like it makes the unconscious conscious, or just lights the dark places. And it also has armor. And he also is not in a aggressive posture. It's more like an honourable sort of posture, like he's humble. And I was like, yeah, that's a part of me too. So I guess in an unconscious way, I kind of did IFS or did some parts work. So that's that kind of my limited experience with the premise.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I do think that lines up with that kind of idea. Yeah, you're trying to meet these different parts of you, and you're trying to make them more visible to yourself. And I do think there is an intuitive way in which we can think, okay, it does make sense that it's like you are different people at different times and in different contexts. You know, your evening self and your morning self, when the alarm goes off, often have disagreements with each other, right? About the priorities of the day.
Yeah.
And similarly, like, you know, your hungry self, your horny self, your angry self, they're all different. Sometimes very different.
They have different motivations. They have different ways of achieving their goals. The subjective experience of being these different things is fundamentally different.
Exactly. And so I thought it's really interesting that there's a framework that really goes deep into this. And I listened to this episode, which I recommend, and we should link to that too. Really recommend listening to this episode. And what I basically just did, I listened to this and I thought, well, this is really interesting. And I simply tried to replicate what they were talking about in this episode, in writing mainly. And it was really impressive. It was really impressive mainly because, and I say this, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this, is like I'm usually a non-responder or very weak responder to things. So, and that seems to be a general rule. So to all kinds of things, you know, if someone goes, "Ooh, I did this meditation and it was just amazing and my whole body was buzzing," and so on, almost guaranteed if I do the same thing, nothing happens. Or even medication, you know, painkillers. I can take painkillers, basically nothing happens and my pain level doesn't change, you know. And it really is very widely true. It's also, for example, coffee. You know, I drink coffee. I can't tell the difference in my reaction between caffeinated and decaffeinated coffee. It feels the same. So in general, I'm quite used to trying things and nothing happens. And with this, I tried this out and it really felt like something was happening here that was different, you know? It felt like this is different from a usual writing session because I'm following this system. And yeah, it was just really interesting, really worthwhile. And I basically just wanted to highlight that to tell people, hey, go do that.
What did this writing session entail?
So in writing, I tried to replicate it. They basically go through they give a demonstration of what a therapy session, an IFS session would look like. And I tried to replicate that. And so I tried to think about, like, who are these parts of me? And I tried in writing to basically to ask them, to almost have a dialogue with them. And the most fascinating thing that happened for me was that some memories came up that I hadn't thought of in ages. And that really suggested to me, like, something is happening here where somehow the process of identifying and personifying a part of me and kind of asking it a question and waiting for an answer made a memory appear that if you had asked me about this, I couldn't have recalled. It was in this specific context, some ancient memory came up, you know? To me, that was the most amazing thing where I was like, oh, okay, something's happening here, you know?
Yeah. All right. Well, that makes sense. I mean, were you, is there like a written sort of step-by-step for this that we could link to, or?
No, I would just link to the podcast episode, because, you know, you can try to wing it. Like, I've done stuff like this quite a lot, so I felt like I can just give this a try. But they also recommend like books and courses and stuff. So I think anyone can listen to this and decide, do I want to just give this a shot, or do I want to contact the therapist, or do I want to read one of these books? I basically just wanted to mention this because I think it seems to me that it's worthwhile to pursue, and this is something I want to explore more of as well.
Cool. Yeah, I think I'll join you on that.
Nice. All right, so link to that in the show notes as usual.